was in fourth grade the first time I realized the world had people in it who wanted to hurt you. My parents had started letting me walk home from school on my own that year. It was maybe a 10-minute walk, nothing complicated. I knew the route by heart. Our neighborhood was quiet. Tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. It felt safe. It always felt safe. I got home that afternoon like any other afternoon, dropped my backpack by the door, kicked off my shoes, grabbed a bag of chips and a Mountain Dew from the kitchen, and settled in front of the TV. Toonami was on. I was perfectly content. The house was empty, but I wasn't scared. I was never scared in that house. It was home. About 3 minutes in, there was a knock at the front door. I didn't think much of it at first. We got knocks sometimes, salespeople, neighbors, the occasional delivery. My parents had told me the rule: don't open the door when you're alone. Don't even let anyone know you're alone. Just stay quiet and wait for them to leave. So that's what I did. I muted the TV. I sat very still. I waited. The knock came again, harder this time. Then a voice, a man's voice, deep, older than my dad's, casual in a way that felt wrong even then. "Hey, it's your buddy Mike." I don't have a buddy Mike. I was 9 years old. My friends were all kids from school with names like Tyler and Jordan. I didn't know any adult named Mike. My stomach dropped immediately. That cold, electric feeling ran from my neck straight down to my feet. "Hey, open up, we gotta go." I had not moved. I was still sitting on the floor in front of the TV, chips in my lap, not breathing. I was maybe 4 feet from the front door. I could feel the distance between me and that door like a physical thing. Then he tried the handle. The door was locked. Thank God it was locked, but I heard it. The slow, deliberate turn of the knob, the slight rattle as it caught the deadbolt, testing it, checking. Then 3 hard knocks. Bam, bam, bam. The kind of knock that isn't asking. The kind of knock that's telling you something. I still didn't move. I was too scared to move. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. The bag of chips was still in my hands, and I remember thinking how loud the crinkling sounded, like he would hear it through the door. He tried the handle again. Then silence. I sat there for what felt like a very long time. Eventually, I heard footsteps retreating down the porch steps, a car door, an engine, then nothing. I waited another full 10 minutes before I got up. I didn't go to the window. I didn't look outside. I went straight to the kitchen, picked up the phone, and called my mom at work. I could barely get the words out. She came home early that day. We talked to our neighbors that evening, asked if anyone had seen a man at our house. One of them had an older woman 2 doors down who'd been gardening. She said she'd watched him walk up to our porch and then walk away, and that she'd noticed him because he'd been standing across the street for a while beforehand, standing still, just watching the house. He had followed me home from school. He had watched me walk up the street, watched me go inside, waited, and then knocked. My parents installed a security camera the next week. I didn't walk home alone for the rest of that school year. I'm an adult now. I have been for a long time. But when I think back on that afternoon, the chips, the TV, that voice through the door, I still feel that cold electricity. I still hear it. "Hey, it's your buddy Mike." He knew the door would be locked. He tried it anyway. That tells you everything you need to know about what he wanted. My mom worked late on weekdays. She usually got home around 7, sometimes a little after, depending on traffic. I was 16, and I'd been staying home alone after school for a couple of years by then, so it wasn't anything unusual. I had my routine. I'd come in, drop my stuff, make something to eat, do homework, or watch TV until she got back. Normal, boring even. That evening was a Tuesday, winter. It got dark early and the house felt smaller at night than it did during the day, which sounds strange, but if you've lived in an older home, you probably understand what I mean. The walls breathe differently after sunset. I'd been watching TV in the living room for about an hour when I heard the front door. The latch, the slight groan of the hinges, sounds I knew as well as my own breathing because I'd heard them 10,000 times. I heard it and immediately relaxed. The low-level alertness I always had when alone just dissolving. Mom's home, except something was off. My mom has a lot of keys. She's always had a lot of keys. House key, car key, her office key, the key to my grandmother's place, a few others she probably hasn't needed in years. She keeps them all on one ring, and when she comes in from a long day, you hear them before you hear anything else. The jangle as she fishes them out of her bag, The scraping as she tries to find the right one, the clatter as she finally unlocks the door. It's one of the most familiar sounds in my life. I didn't hear the keys. I sat up a little straighter, told myself maybe she'd dropped them in her bag already, maybe she was in a rush. The door had opened. She was home. That was fine. Then I didn't hear the living room door open. When my mom comes in, she always opens the living room door first, says hi, checks in every single time. I've never known her to go anywhere else in the house first. It's just what she does. The living room door didn't open. Instead, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy footsteps. Slow, careful, deliberate. The kind of footsteps someone takes when they're trying not to make noise but can't quite manage it because the stairs are old and the wood gives underweight. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. Going up. I was off the couch before I even fully registered what I was doing. Every hair on my body was standing. My brain had already processed what my conscious mind was still catching up to. Someone was in the house who wasn't supposed to be there. I grabbed my phone from the cushion and backed toward the kitchen, putting the wall behind me, keeping my eyes on the doorway that led to the hall and the stairs beyond it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. I typed a text to my mom, just 2 words, "Are you home?" The footsteps had stopped somewhere near the top of the stairs. The 3 seconds it took for her reply felt like a year. "No, why? At grocery store, home in 20, you okay?" I called 911. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and get outside if I could do it safely. I went out the back door into the yard, barefoot on frozen grass, and stood there in the dark and the cold shaking until I saw the blue and red lights come down our street. The officers went through the whole house, checked every room, every closet, the attic access panel in the upstairs hallway. They found no one. The back door, they told me, had been left unlocked. Not broken into, just unlocked. The latch hadn't caught properly. I don't know if I'd done it or if someone had been in the house before and I hadn't noticed. They couldn't tell me either. What I know is what I heard. Heavy, slow, careful footsteps on our stairs, going up, when there was no one in that house but me. My mom had the back door lock replaced the next morning. I checked it every single night for years after. Sometimes I still do. I work late most nights. Not by choice, just by circumstance. I'm a freelancer, and deadlines don't respect business hours. So by midnight, 1 in the morning, it's not unusual to find me at my desk in the corner of my apartment with 3 cold coffees and a screen full of half-finished work. My setup at the time put my back to the window. I know. Everyone who hears this story says the same thing. You had your back to the window, but the desk fit there, the lighting was good there, and I lived on the 2nd floor of a building on a pretty quiet block. It felt fine. It had always felt fine. It was a Wednesday night, just after 1 in the morning. I was deep in a project, headphones on, the kind of focused state where the rest of the world goes soft and distant. I wasn't thinking about anything except the work in front of me. My phone buzzed on the desk beside me. Security camera alert. I have a little camera mounted near my front door, mostly for package theft. I'd gotten it the previous year after someone took a delivery off my step. It had never once alerted me to anything interesting, just mail carriers and delivery drivers and the occasional raccoon investigating my recycling bin. I picked up my phone and opened the app without really thinking about it. The camera angle shows my door, the hallway, and, because of the way my apartment is arranged, the window directly behind my desk. There was a man standing outside that window, just standing there, facing in, looking directly at where I was sitting. I didn't scream. I don't know why I didn't scream. Some part of my brain switched into a very flat, very calm mode that I think of as survival mode, where everything narrows down to what's important and the noise falls away. I closed my laptop very slowly. I turned off my desk lamp. I sat completely still in the dark, not moving, not making a sound. I watched the camera feed on my phone. He didn't leave. He stood there with his arms at his sides, face toward the window, not moving, not trying to get in, not doing anything, just standing there in the dark, looking at where I had been sitting seconds before, watching me work. I called the non-emergency line with the volume turned all the way down, cupped the speaker against my palm, and whispered what was happening. The dispatcher kept me on the line. I told her I was going to move to the bathroom and lock the door, and that's what I did. I got up slowly, walked low, went into the bathroom and sat against the wall with the phone pressed to my ear and the camera feed still open on the screen. He was on the camera for 22 minutes. I counted the timestamp. 22 minutes, just standing there. Then he walked away, casually, no rush. By the time the officer arrived, there was no one there. She checked the alley, the street, the building entrance. Nothing. I reviewed the full camera history the next day. He was there the night before too, for a shorter time, about 7 minutes. And the night before that, just a few minutes, partially out of frame, but there. He had been coming back. He had been watching me. He knew my schedule. I moved my desk the next morning. I also requested a unit transfer, which my building approved 2 weeks later. I still can't sit with my back to a window. I don't think I ever will again. We live a good distance from the nearest town. Not off-grid or anything, but rural. You know the kind of house I mean. Long driveway, neighbors you can't see from your front porch, the closest streetlight a quarter-mile down the road. My family has lived there for most of my life. I grew up knowing how to be alone out there. You learn to be comfortable with space, with dark, with the sounds a house makes when there's nothing around for miles. I was 17 the summer this happened. My parents had driven up to see my aunt for a long weekend, leaving me with a short list of chores and the understanding that I was old enough to manage. I'd done it before. I fed the animals. I kept the place up. I checked in by phone twice a day. Normal enough. Everything was normal until the third morning when I went out to the equipment shed. We keep the sit-down mower in there, the quad, a bunch of lawn care tools along the walls. It's a big metal building, the kind that echoes when you step inside. The door slides on a horizontal track and latches on the outside with a simple hook. I was going to get the mower out to do the backfield before it got too hot. I reached the door and stopped. The latch was down. I had hooked it myself the last time I was in there, 2 days before. I was careful about that because we'd had something, a raccoon or a groundhog, we never figured out exactly what, get inside a few years back and nest behind the mower. I always latched it. It was not latched. I stood there for a moment, telling myself I'd probably just forgotten. It was an easy thing to forget. I pulled the door and stepped inside. The light switch was about 6 feet in on the left wall. I reached for it. Something shifted in the dark. Not an animal sound. Animals scramble when you startle them. Skittering, scratching, quick, sharp movement. This was heavier than that. This was the sound of something adjusting its position. Something large, something trying very deliberately to stay still after having moved. I did not turn the light on. Every instinct I had said do not turn the light on. I backed out of that shed and I walked, not ran, walked, because some part of me understood that if there was someone in there, I did not want them to know I was afraid. Back to the house. I went inside, locked the back door, picked up the rifle from the closet, and called my dad. He told me to call the police and go back outside to wait for them. Do not stay inside. Do not confront anyone. Get out and wait. I stood by my car at the end of the driveway for about 20 minutes before the sheriff's deputy arrived. She went to the shed with her hand on her firearm. She called in another unit before she opened it. I never heard what they found or didn't find. The official word was that the shed was empty. But before she went in, she looked at the ground near the door, and she radioed something about footprints, and the way her voice changed when she did, lower, more careful, has stayed with me. Someone had been in that building. Maybe someone had been sleeping in it. Maybe for more than one night. I called my parents. They came home that same evening. We put a padlock on the shed that weekend, and a motion-activated floodlight, and a camera. Nothing like that has happened again. But I still check the latch every time before I go in. Both hands on the door, eyes adjusting to the dark before I go any further, every single time. I need to tell you something before I get into this. I am not an anxious person by nature. I don't startle easily. I've lived alone for years in different cities, different apartments, and I've never once lost sleep over being on my own. I say this because I want you to understand that what happened that night wasn't fear looking for something to attach to. It was the other thing, the real thing. It was late spring, maybe 2 years ago. I was living in a second-floor apartment in a mid-sized building. Decent neighborhood, decent building, keycard entry at the street door, no elevator but a clean enough stairwell. I'd been there for about 8 months and I'd had zero problems. I went to bed around 11, slept fine, no strange dreams, no restlessness. I was just asleep. I came awake at some point in the dark with the absolute certain knowledge that something had woken me up. I lay still and listened. 3 knocks on my door. Measured. Even. Patient. That's the word I always come back to when I describe this. Patient, like whoever was on the other side had all the time in the world and was perfectly prepared to wait. I looked at my phone. 3:07 a.m. I did not move. I stayed in bed and I stared at the ceiling and I thought through every possible explanation. A neighbor locked out and needing help, a maintenance emergency, someone at the wrong door. Then I thought, who knocks on a door at 3 in the morning and doesn't say anything? Because there was no voice, no hello through the door, no sorry to bother you, no anything, just those 3 knocks, and then silence. I got up. I did not turn on any lights. I walked to my front door and I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Not just empty of people, empty in that particular way a hallway gets at 3 in the morning when every apartment is dark and the only light is the emergency exit sign at the far end. Completely still. Nobody there. I stepped back from the door. I stood in my dark entryway for a full minute listening. Nothing. I went back to bed and lay awake until the sun came up, which was maybe 3 hours later. When it was light, I opened my door and checked the hallway. Checked the stairwell. Nothing unusual. Nobody had called the building's emergency line overnight. None of my neighbors reported anything. I've told this story and gotten a lot of different explanations back. Dreams, hypnagogia, old buildings making noise. I've considered all of them. I'm not claiming it was anything supernatural. I'm just telling you what happened. 3 knocks, 3:07 in the morning, a hallway with no one in it. I have not slept as well since, and I don't expect I ever will. I was in the shower when it happened, which makes it worse, I think. The vulnerability of it. The way you step into the shower and the rest of the world goes muffled, and you think you're in your own small private space for just a few minutes. I'd been living in that apartment for about 1.5 years. Small, but fine. 1 bedroom, city block, 3rd floor. The building was old, but managed okay. The super's name was Frank, and he had always given me a mild, low-level, uncomfortable feeling that I mostly ignored because he technically did his job and never did anything specific enough for me to complain about. He was just one of those people. You know the type. The rule in my lease and in the city's tenant code was clear. Management had to give at least 24 hours notice before entering a unit unless it was an actual emergency. They were supposed to call or text. I had never had any issues with that being violated, so I stopped thinking about it. That changed on a Thursday afternoon in February. I was in the shower. I had my little Bluetooth speaker going on the bathroom shelf, which meant the music was maybe a little louder than it needed to be. I don't know exactly how long he was in the apartment before I turned off the water. When I turned off the water, I heard him. Movement from the direction of my front room, the creak of my floor under weight that was not mine. I froze, standing there in the tub with water dripping off me, completely still, listening. My heart went from 0 to full sprint in about half a second. The steps moved toward the hallway. I grabbed my robe from the hook behind the bathroom door. I opened the door, just a crack at first, just enough to look. My body pressed against the frame in case I needed to slam it shut. Frank. He was standing in my hallway holding a screwdriver, looking at me with this expression that was completely calm, unbothered. The expression of someone who does not believe they have done anything wrong. Air filters, he said. The latch lock on my front door, the one I had installed myself, the chain-style one that only locks from the inside, was on the floor. The bracket was bent. He had hammered it off the wall to get in. I stood there wrapped in my robe, wet hair, shaking from something that wasn't cold, and stared at the bent bracket on the floor and then at him. He had a key. He didn't need to touch my latch lock at all. He had a key to my deadbolt. The latch lock only does anything from the inside. It's the lock you use when you're home, so that even someone with a key can't just walk in. He had removed it specifically so he could get in while I was there. He had known I was home. I told him to get out. He left without hurrying. He didn't apologize. He didn't seem confused or embarrassed. He left the way you leave a room you've been in 100 times, easy, familiar. I called the building's management company from the hallway with the door propped open. I called a locksmith after that, and I started looking for a new apartment that same evening. I found one within a month. What I haven't found is the ability to shower without listening for sounds on the other side of the door. That part I'm still working on. His name was Bear. He was 8 years old, a golden retriever, the softest, laziest, most gentle animal I have ever met in my life. In 8 years, I had never once heard him bark the way he barked that night. I was home alone on a Saturday evening. My parents were at a birthday dinner for a family friend, wouldn't be back until late. I'd eaten, cleaned up, settled on the couch with Bear at my feet the way we always did. He was asleep. I could hear him breathing. Everything was quiet and ordinary. At some point around 9 o'clock, Bear woke up. Not gradually, not the slow, drowsy way dogs usually come back from sleep, stretching and yawning. He woke up all at once and he was on his feet before I even realized he'd moved. His ears were flat. His whole body was rigid, locked in the direction of the back of the house. The back door, specifically. The glass sliding door that faced the yard. I sat up. "Hey, what's wrong?" He didn't look at me. He walked toward the sliding door, stiff-legged, and then he did something I had never seen him do. He pressed himself against my legs and shoved me backward, physically moved me away from the door. Then he planted himself between me and the glass, head low, hackles raised all the way from his neck to the base of his tail, and he started barking. Not the sharp, excited barking he did when he saw a squirrel or heard something in the street. Not even the alert bark he used when someone knocked on the front door. This was different. This was deep and sustained and desperate. The sound of an animal communicating something urgent, something serious. The kind of bark that says there is danger here. I could not see anything through the glass. The yard was dark. The motion light that usually clicked on hadn't triggered, which meant whatever was out there wasn't in its range, was somewhere along the edges. In the darkness, the light didn't reach. I didn't go to the door. Bear had made it very clear that was not where I should be. I pulled him with me to the center of the room, grabbed my phone, and texted my parents. I stood with my back to the interior wall and watched him watch the door. For 5 minutes he barked, sustained, relentless, directed at that glass. Then he stopped. Like a switch. He stopped, turned around, licked my hand, and lay down. My dad came home early. He checked the whole yard with a flashlight. He checked the side gate, the back fence, the garage. He didn't say what he found or didn't find, but I noticed the next day that he'd bought a new padlock for the side gate and installed it before breakfast. Bear lived for 3 more years after that. He slept at the foot of my bed for every single one of them. I never let him sleep downstairs after that night. And he never, not once in those 3 years, made that sound again. I don't know what was in the yard. I know my dog did. And I know he stood between it and me for every second of those 5 minutes, and that's something I will carry. I moved into my first apartment at 23, ground floor unit in a small complex, 4 units total, quiet tenants, reasonable rent, close to work. I felt good about it. I checked the locks when I moved in, changed the deadbolt the way my dad always told me to, felt settled and fine. Things started small, which I think is the part that makes these experiences so hard to name in the moment. Nothing dramatic at first. Nothing you could point to and say, definitively, that was wrong. The first thing was my kitchen window. I keep my kitchen window cracked when I cook. Maybe 2 or 3 inches, just enough for air. I had done it for years in my previous apartment, and it was pure habit. The issue is that I always closed it and latched it before I went to bed. My dad had been very specific about ground floor windows, and I had taken it seriously. One morning I woke up and the kitchen window was not latched. I stood there looking at it, and I went through every possibility. I'd been tired, I'd forgotten, the latch had slipped. I didn't let myself linger on it. I latched it and went on with my day. 2 weeks later, I came home from work to find my front closet door open. I never opened that closet. I stored winter coats and luggage in it, things I didn't need in the summer. The door stuck a little and required an actual deliberate effort to open it. It was not the kind of thing that happened by accident. I called a friend to come over that night. We checked the whole apartment, Every closet, under the beds, behind the shower curtain, nothing. But I started paying attention. Over the next 3 weeks, I noticed small things. A chair slightly out of place, a cabinet door open that I hadn't opened, my toilet seat up when I lived alone, each one individually explainable. Together, they formed a picture I did not want to look at. Then one evening I came home and smelled coffee. I had not made coffee that day. I hadn't even opened the coffee maker, but there was the smell. Fresh, unmistakable, coming from my kitchen, and when I went in there, the coffee maker was warm. I was out of that apartment and on my neighbor's porch within 30 seconds. I called the police from there. 2 officers came and searched the unit. In my front closet, the one I never opened, the one that required effort, they found evidence that someone had been in there recently. A space cleared out, an energy bar wrapper that was not mine. The building manager confirmed that a spare key had been kept in the office, standard practice, legally required. He also confirmed that 2 weeks prior, someone had come in, identified themselves as a maintenance contractor, and been given access to the key box to address a reported water issue. No work order existed for that job. Someone had copied my key multiple times while I was at work. They had made themselves coffee. They had sat in my home. They had hidden in my closet. I have never lived on a ground floor since. Our house sat back a bit from the road, rural area, far enough from town that if you ended up on our property, it wasn't an accident. You either knew us or you'd made a wrong turn, and a wrong turn didn't get you to our front door. It got you to the beginning of the driveway, at which point any reasonable person turns around and leaves. I was home alone on a weekday afternoon. My parents both worked. My brother was at sports practice. I was in my room, window facing the driveway, which I'd cracked open because it was the kind of afternoon where the heat just settled into the walls and didn't move. I was reorganizing my bookshelf and singing, loudly. I was in one of those moods, completely at ease, nobody watching, music on my little speaker, belting it out like I was performing a concert. I glanced up at the window. There was a man at the end of the driveway, not walking past, not standing on the road. He was at the beginning of our driveway, turned toward the house, and he was moving. Fast, not running, but the kind of purposeful, rapid walking that covered ground quickly. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't checking addresses. He was heading directly for the house. Our driveway is long enough that I had maybe 30 seconds. I dropped what I was in my hands and moved. I went to the front door first, already locked, thank God, turned the deadbolt and the chain. Then I went back to my room and slammed my window shut and latched it. Then every other window on the ground floor, working my way around the house, hands moving faster than I could think. By the time I got back to the kitchen, he was at the front door. He knocked, hard, not a polite knock, a knock that rattled the frame. I had my phone in my hand. I called 911. I told them quietly what was happening, where I was, what I'd seen. The dispatcher was calm and she kept me that way. He knocked again. He tried the handle. Then he went around the side of the house. I could hear him. I tracked him by sound. Footsteps on the gravel along the south side of the house. Then along the back. Then the sound of the back gate latch rattling. The back gate was locked. He rattled it twice and moved on. I heard him at every window on the ground floor. Just the sound of testing, pressure on the frame, a rattle, moving to the next one. The dispatcher heard all of it. She told me to stay away from the windows. She told me units were on the way. He left before they arrived. Just stopped. The footsteps faded down the driveway and I heard nothing. The officers found no one on the property. One of them walked the perimeter, checked the back field, looked down the road both ways. He was gone. We never found out who he was or what he wanted. We never saw him again. But when I think about it, about how carefully he went around that house, checking every possible way in, I know that he wasn't lost. I know that he wasn't there by accident. I want to start by saying I know what voices in the house sound like at night. Settling beams. Wind finding gaps in window frames. The particular way old houses create sounds that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere. This was not that. I was 19 and working as a server at a restaurant about 20 minutes from the house I grew up in. My parents had gone to visit relatives for 4 days. I'd stayed behind, work, and honestly, 4 days of having the house to myself sounded perfect. I was mature enough to be alone, practical enough not to be careless about it. I came home from a late shift one night around 11:30, tired, happy to be done. I pulled onto the property, parked in front of the house, and got out. I stopped on the front deck. Footsteps around the side of the house. Not animal footsteps, not the light skittering movement of something small. Heavy footsteps, deliberate, human. I stood on that deck and I did not move. The footsteps stopped. I got my key in the door so fast I surprised myself, stepped inside, locked the deadbolt, and went immediately for the phone in the kitchen. I called 911. The dispatcher answered and I kept my voice low, explained what I'd heard, gave her my address. She asked me if there were any interior doors that could be locked. I told her the master bedroom had a lock. She told me to go there and lock myself in while I stayed on the line. I was crossing the living room when I heard it. A knock on the front door, slow even, unhurried. The dispatcher heard it too. She told me not to engage, keep moving, get to the bedroom. I was at the bedroom door when a voice came through. Deep, male, calm in a way that felt practiced. "What's up, kid?" That was it. Just those words. No question, no urgency, nothing that made sense in any normal context. Just, "What's up, kid?" through my front door, at midnight. I was inside the bedroom with the door locked before I'd even finished processing what I'd heard. The dispatcher told me to keep quiet. She was sending units. She was calm and measured, and I focused everything I had on her voice. I don't know what made me do it, but I said, loud and clear, loud enough to be heard through the bedroom door and the hallway and the front door beyond it, "I'm on the phone with the police right now and I have a gun." I put her on speaker. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I heard footsteps on the porch. Then the handle of the front door. Testing it. One slow, deliberate attempt. Then nothing. The police arrived 11 minutes later. They searched the property, the tree line at the back, the road. They found no one. But they found footprints in the mud along the side of the house where I'd heard him, and they found a window at the back that hadn't been tampered with, but had been studied. The officer pointed out marks on the exterior, around the lower frame, signs of someone checking whether it could be moved from the outside. I didn't go back to that house after the police left. I drove to a friend's apartment and slept on their couch and called my parents first thing in the morning. I still hear that voice sometimes, in the quiet moments. The total calm of it. The way it wasn't afraid of me at all. "What's up, kid? I hope I never hear it again."